21 minutes after the hour, America. It's Hugh Hewitt. This is a special segment of the Hugh Hewitt Show. It's being simulcast on PJTV.com tonight because I want to get the word out about it as far and as wide as possible. In studio with me is Frank Dowse. You've heard Frank on the program before. Frank is the co-founder and chief executive officer of the Agamis Group, LLC, which is headquartered in Southern California. The Agamis Group is a specialized global crisis management and risk solutions consulting firm. Frank, of course, retired Lieutenant Colonel of the United States Marine Corps with so much background in security consulting, I can only begin to summarize. And we did something in studio today for more than an hour, which is to produce a CD, which will be available both at Agamis Group website and the Universe and the Hughes store, about when a crisis hits, because when Frank has been on the program before talking about that, the response has always been overwhelming, especially after a series of crises. Well, I go back to the Mumbai hotel attack when the head of that hotel chain, Ratan Tata, said, "I felt totally helpless. What was needed was a crisis management group in addition to the national authorities to deal with this crisis." They didn't have one. They didn't have a plan. And Frank Dowse, that's what we were talking about today.
Yeah, Hugh, again, I appreciate this. It's wonderful to see you again. I think one of the things that Tata found immediately that struck him was the fact that even though you can have very qualified and capable government and security forces, in the end they may not be directing your personal and specific business needs. And of course he is a huge magnet, financial magnet in India, so you'd think if anybody was going to get any love and attention, it'd be somebody like him, but there he stood completely helpless.
In order to kickstart your crisis planning, we did this 60 to 75 minute special, which will be at the Universe for Universe subscribers. You can get it at the Agamis Group website as well as soon as it's produced. And Frank, what is the Agamis website?
It is www.agamisgroup.com.
So we're just going to give you a taste right now because I can't pretend that we can cover in an 8-minute segment what we covered in 75 minutes or what a full-blown security consult would do. But let's talk about what a CEO leader in crisis should do, the top 10 things at least. Frank, what's number one?
Yeah, certainly. I think initiate and designate a crisis response team, Hugh. Right off the bat, you need to make sure you understand you've got people who are decision shapers and decision makers on this team that can go ahead and speak and act on behalf of the senior leadership.
Well, they should have been designated before the crisis hit.
Absolutely, yeah. This is a team that's already been they were just assembling them now, but they've been identified, hopefully, before that time, and they have their roles to play.
Now, if they hadn't done that, and your hotel is attacked, or your consulate is under siege, or your employee has been kidnapped, should that be the first thing you do anyway? Designate A, B, and C is going to be you're the CEO and you want a team?
Absolutely. I think it's imperative that they understand they've got to have the people who understand the problem, are solving the problem, working the problem, and bringing solution sets to the CEO so he can act accordingly.
Now, will those folks be typically outside of the box, Frank? I mean, will they be people that don't have necessarily line authority to the CEO, but he knows of them or she knows of them?
Depending on, it could be a regional issue, it could be a functional issue. So it could be somebody in manufacturing that can help with something that's involved in a manufacturing or supply chain issue, yes, and they may not have DERLOF or direct authority to the CEO. However, he's going to want to surround himself with the best capable folks he can, and usually those are the people that are within his C-suite that can act accordingly.
All right, designate the crisis response team, hopefully before the crisis hits. Number two.
Start a log, because as things start to unfold, you have somebody who is designated as the crisis response team commander. That person can designate somebody to start a log and make a reference for further analysis, but also importantly, just a narrative to be able to get in line who's who, who's where, what do we know, what don't we know, and a narrative and a timeline to be able to refer to.
Number three.
Accountability. It's absolutely imperative that leadership knows where their people are, what their status is. There should be, prior to this, as I talk about mitigation being the best response, you should be able to initiate predetermined communication lines that can account for and identify who's where, when.
Yeah, I'm thinking about all of the companies that were impacted in Moscow this week.
Yeah.
And you wonder how many of them, after those explosions went off, immediately knew which employees were supposed to be where, who was missing, and then point number four, how to contact families and significant others.
Exactly. That ties right into the whole communication aspect, because then again, you also have people who are expats who are out there, their loved one may be traveling in a third country somewhere, and now we've got to account for the the expat and the expatriate families as well.
And so that information should be constantly updated. Everyone should know who is what in an organization. After a crisis, who didn't show up is a big deal.
Exactly.
Number five, draft and release a company-wide alert. What's in the alert?
first of all, not everybody knows what's happened. Identify what's happened, what the ramifications are for the company, and then most importantly, what is it that you can do at this time, meaning the person that's receiving this information, to make it relevant. What can you do? What processes and what steps can you take to go ahead and mitigate your own situation, or what actions can be taken to avoid as a consequence of the event that took place?
Over-communicate. I'm talking with Frank Dowse, once again, CEO of the Agamis Group, about crisis response and what you need to do now to be ready for when it happens. Number 6, Frank, goes to travel arrangements.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important. You're going to have, for example, I have a friend of mine who is a leader in the global security for a large company that any given time he's got nearly 10,000 people on the road globally at any given time. So he has a tremendous challenge in ensuring that, okay, where, and that's, he claims in the air, but I think what we're talking about is in transit someplace. So talk about the Herculean, spot-on way in which to capture that information. Who's going where? Do they need to continue that itinerary that they've started? Do we need to now have line supervisors immediately scrub and analyze and decide whether this next movement is pertinent given the information?
If they had people en route to Moscow on Monday morning, they may very well have said there isn't going to be anything going on in Moscow this week. Turn them around. Don't let them get on the plane.
That's a perfect example.
All right, number 7, establish, maintain, continue communication with deployed personnel using a company chain of command. That's obvious, but I'll bet you those chains of command aren't even obvious sometimes.
Yeah, I think the thing that defies logic in some cases is that there's so many assumptions and expectations that we'll have the right phone number or that the person that's traveling has GSM capability. These are things that you can just check off immediately and ensure that the smallest things early on can make a big difference when something happens.
Number 8, modify, distribute, action plan, incorporating new conditions so that you've got something in the hands of all of your key employees and your contacts.
And distribute it out as quickly as possible and modify as events unfold. And it's important that these are the types of steps that are taken early on. Don't react, enact, initiate what you've already got planned.
Number 9, conduct and review existing protections, measures, crisis response, and recovery plans. I guess that should be on a regular 6-month basis?
Well, I think you could maybe even look at it a quarterly basis, depending on the threat level and the threats to your vulnerabilities and capabilities. If you've got a manufacturing plant in Geary, that might be different than the guy who's got something outside of Jakarta.
And then finally, assess, retain, and initiate external support mechanism or crisis response professionals in accordance with response plans, review insurance coverage. This came on me, Frank. I got a phone call from a friend of mine in Arizona whose sister was on a mission trip in Haiti when the earthquake happened, and they were scrambling to put together a team to go find her. Now, thank God she didn't have to be rescued. She appeared. But he was scrambling to put together the team that a person might want to know who they're talking to, whether it's the Agamis Group or any other group, before that actually happens.
It is imperative that, again, mitigation and setting up these crisis response plans, and that's what they are. They're crisis response plans. So did we know that the earthquake was going to hit? No. But do we know that Haiti's a difficult place? Regardless of an earthquake, it's already difficult now that we've got somebody there to at least keep tabs on where they might be and how to get to them.
And there is your sample, America, of what Frank and I spent about an hour and a quarter today doing. If you want to know more about that, go to agamisgroup.com or send me an email, hugh@hughhewitt.com, or simply join the universe. It will be posted there. Special content for the Universians. I'll be right back on The Hugh Hewitt Show.